quick, what we're going to be talking about, give me a little cap.
So I was just going to go over with you my talk that I had, and it was just more like how I feel about what this whole movement is about, this
Okay.
Black Lives Matter movement. What are we asking for? Who are we talking to?
Okay.
That type of thought process.
Okay.
That was kind of my talk too.
Okay. So this is just literally you and I playing around with some of my ideas of how I would open up a conversation with somebody. You are literally my first of a notebook of people that I want to sit down with. So this is truly organic, me just getting the vibe of how I mesh with someone other than this and it being straight off and candid. Okay? All right, Kay. Ready? Welcome. Where you're at with Heather Hobbits, living life through different lenses. Today I'm with Donald Snowman, an incredible gentleman that literally manifested poof right in my house through an array of different situations that brought us here today, having nothing to do with why we're here, but it was so meant to be. I hope you enjoy. Donald, you and I have discussed some serious stuff. You showing up at my house to do a job led through a manifestation conversation. Here we are, 3 months later?
Yep.
And we're going to talk about some topics that are rich to my tribe, resonate with your tribe, but I'd like to hear it and see it through your lenses. And I hope you guys will appreciate where we're going with this today.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your live, I understand that you did last week.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Was really just trying to take the narrative that we hear every day between the pandemic, one, and then Black Lives Matter, and what sparks that, and how it raises its head every now and again, depending on what the agenda is.
Okay.
I feel like we tend to have moments where a person gets killed a certain way or certain things happen, and all of a sudden Black Lives Matter, there's rioting, there's looting, and then technically, go back to sleep. There are some things that happen along the way, small things, grassroots things. They may change some legislation here or there, but is it really something that is going to be changed?
Does it adhere?
Right.
Right.
And do we still continue to have the same problem?
Can I ask how old you are? Just
40.
to give the audience
40 years old.
generational what we're talking about here, because when we talk about our generation, and then you got the Z generation, and we discussed earlier before we sat down, your dad's 80 years old.
Right.
So I would love to hear how your father sees it.
Right.
Just the different landscapes and generations in this, because I think for me as a white woman, I can't fathom to sit and depict what you're going to share with me through your lens. All I know is how I've seen it, and I'm grateful in my skin that I am one of a Caucasian that views it as passionately as you do. It's unfortunate that there's still some people that don't.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate, right? So this is the barrier that I'm looking today to discuss with Donald on how we can really flip the script here for permanency. So finish, let me hear it.
So, it's funny that you say that, because basically the height of what I was explaining was, it's systematic. We hear that word systematic being thrown around, but do we really understand what systematic means in the sense of the evolution of Black people here in America? Even you as a white woman, and I say this at times, didn't even get the right to vote until 1921.
Okay.
So there was a white man in charge that didn't see fit for his mother, his aunt, his grandmother, his niece to even vote until 1921. So if they feel that way about the people that they spend their life with, why would they feel any closer to us?
Right. Okay.
So even
Ooh, can you feel the energy? Oh, I'm like want for the audience when I sit with someone is, right now I'm buzzing because I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I feel from you as an energy worker is you know that right now you are captivating an audience for you to speak as deep as you want to speak, and you feel comfortable doing that with me, and I want to give that to you as I want it. It's going to make me choke up because I think there's a lot of people that don't tiptoe into waters that they want to swim in because they're afraid of breaking through barriers. And in reality, the only way any of this shit's going to change is if you and I can level up and talk.
Have a conversation.
Have a conversation where you're at right now today. So I feel you sitting here like, pardon me, fuck. We're getting ready. I mean, she's gonna dig in there, and I can feel it coming. And that's what I want. I expressed to you when we first got to know each other, and I could feel that Spirit brought us. Bam, we were gonna do some work together.
Absolutely.
And for no other reason than, and I can't say this any more bolder, there is nothing that pains me as a human with a soul to stand in front of a sister and feel that she feels I'm judging her. Do you remember me saying that
Absolutely.
to you?
Yep.
And that I will go through any depths to have her recognize that I recognize her as a soul, period. Period. And there is no judgment. I'd love to hear a story so I could share, because we all have a story.
Absolutely.
But there's no, I just want that barrier broke. And I think there's a lot of people out there that if they could hear stories instead of see color, so much would change.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate that there is not a platform for it to be a calm conversation and then the ignorance is lifted.
That's right.
So for you to say something so profound that there once was a day where the white man, your relative, did not allow you, because you simply were a female, to do what he felt he was empowered to do over you, is one barrier. That is, now we're seen equal, because we should understand. Finish. Brilliant.
So that's, and I always refer back to the system as I make points. The next thing I feel is even to have the platform. So like we talked about, if you start back during slavery, we were brought here, we were building homes, we were fixing farms. I mean, we built this nation along with the other brown people, the Latino American or the South American. People don't think that they were here, but they, but you don't have places like Los Angeles and San Diego. Those are they were Latin places, and so we were here to build a country. And before that, the Native Americans were here, and it was taken from them. And so this system has been in place for so long. It's not just something that's new. It's not something that started when the Europeans came here. They came here with a system. And unless you start, and this is where I feel like we don't understand as a collective whole the actual enemy we're fighting. If you want to say, when we go out and we're chanting, or we're going out and we say, we want equal rights, or we want equal justice, or we want equality, is that what we have to ask for? That's a human right.
Yeah.
Why are we asking for that?
Right.
You can ask for anything you want, but why ask for that?
Right. That should be understood.
And that's all we do. And that's all we do when we're out marching. No justice, no peace, no. Really?
Right.
Like
in 2020, we're still talking about, I put my pants on the same
my
way.
dad, 80 years ago, growing up, depression, all of that, it's the same thing. So the narrative that we're asking for hasn't changed, and I feel like that's why the answers that we have gotten, or the solutions that we've gotten, hasn't changed enough. Because one, if you look at, slavery, then you have the Emancipation Proclamation, and then you have the war, the Revolutionary War, and then out of that you had Juneteenth, where they decided to free the rest of the slaves, and that was our celebration. And then from there you had, and I'm sure there have been some things in between, but from there you had affirmative action. So now we have to, in the workplace, if you have a certain amount of white people, we got to have a black person. And then you have, even in sports, if you're going to hire, if you're going to interview a certain amount of coaches some of them need to be black. So even in that, it's always been, as it's gone on, has been a form of inclusion. Let's just include them.
I see.
We're not giving them anything. We're still in control. We're still superior. We'll just figure out different ways to include them. You have a black president, and so for that, and actually, he's a black president, but he is a mixed president. His mom is white, his dad is black, and he was raised with his grandfather who was white, and so that narrative you don't hear a lot of. And so even at that, we felt like, we reached the height of life because we had a black person run the country. But as we were talking about earlier, even the people who are in the seat of the presidency don't make the decisions.
Yeah.
There are people who help them out with
Right.
those, make those decisions for them.
Right.
So they get the right people who can carry out the decisions that they want to be made.
Right.
And then when we talk about black presidents and we hear about, this is the first black president. Well, nobody talks about John Hanson. Granted, it was back before George Washington and the time before the United States became an independent country. But John Hanson was the first black person who was actually considered a president during that time. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at history, we've just been included.
Okay.
Let's just include us.
Yep.
And we'll get included on different levels. And so through that, which, you can say has been great because we've been able to infiltrate, so to speak, everything. You got black CEOs, you got black generals, you got, the Surgeon General now is a black man.
Yeah.
So you have different arenas that you have black people in power.
Okay.
To get to a certain level of power, white, black, or indifferent, then there's certain channels you need to cross. And that looks the same for everybody. So only certain people are going to hit that upper echelon of power.
Yep.
And you come in with the greatest intentions down here, but to become president, it's going to be a few things that you're going to have to do that you probably didn't know when you were there in the grassroots area.
Yeah.
But again, you have a family to feed, you have things that you want to do, and so even for us to say that we aspire for our kids to be, if I said I aspire for my son to be the president of the United States, what am I telling people? Am I telling people that he's smart, he goes to Harvard, he has done those things? Because he can be a smart child without being the president, and you think that's the highest office, but what do you really go through?
Right.
And so do we want to set them up for that? And going through that process of the whole thought of, back to the Black Lives Matter type, just the name, Black Lives Matter. Like, who are we talking to?
Right.
And are we talking to the police? Are we talking to the community? Who are we shouting that to? And then, based on that, they tell us, and when I say they, I'm speaking of the establishment or the ones who make the decisions. Mm-hmm. And most likely that's past your president.
Yep.
Those people decide how we should feel. Same thing we were talking about with this whole virus. It's different now because if me or somebody like me, or anybody for this matter, as crazy as the world is now, we're going to a store with a mask on. Oh God, it was like, what are they doing?
That's right, yeah.
Now we're going to a store
without
a mask on,
yeah.
And they look at you like, what are you doing?
I literally just said this weekend, I said, do you realize that there was a time that only criminals wore masks? And yet here we walk around, and if you're not in a mask, you're the criminal.
Absolutely. And it only took 90 days.
Yeah. Donald, I'm so glad you said that because it was weeks before that TV started. Everything was about masks, commercials, masks, social distance. Everything was geared towards what has really been hunkered in the last 6 weeks, back in March. I remember sitting there that morning thinking, what the hell, it's been 2 weeks and we've already got commercials where they are selling goods to promote what they're telling us is coming or could come when we tune into the TV. It's not even here, but they've got commercials out for it.
And guess what? Do you think they just put them out? No, that's the system
Yes.
at work.
Yes.
The system is greater. The system is greater than we can think of in real time.
Yes. Yes.
And so if they can use propaganda, such as TV and radio and those things, to push the narrative,
Sure.
then we all start to become sheep or sin.
Yep. Yep.
And in that sense, it took them roughly 90 days. So if they can have you looking at me funny because I don't have a mask on in 90 days,
What
look
have
at
they
what
done?
they've done in the last 400 years. How much work do you think they can have done?
Yeah. Right.
And so when I talk about the Black Lives Matter situation,
This is the same damn thing.
it's exactly right.
It's the same damn thing. It could have been the white people. It could have been reversed. It's what was channeled and how it's played out and been kept in a system for hundreds of years.
Right. And so when you look at the protests, right, that I remember this almost like it was yesterday. I was watching the news, which I very rarely do, and they said it's going to be a protest in downtown Raleigh on Friday and Saturday. Well, if I'm looting and stealing as a black person or whatever, like they think we are, who the hell gonna call the news to tell them that we're going to protest? I'm not gonna call them.
Right.
So somebody has to go, one, draw the permit for the protest, because you can't, they block off roads and streets for you to protest.
Yes.
So who's doing that, right? And people can make those answers themselves. You give them just enough information, and it just causes a thought to sink in.
Sure.
So who puts in that permit? You know? And then when we get down there, everything is roped off, and it's amazing how we just go to that area to protest. We live in hoods, ghettos, communities that we don't control every single day. We see police every single day. Police sit in our neighborhoods every single day. They tend to, we almost know their schedule better than they do. You know, and we have a lot of the store owners in the corner stores that we go to are Asian.
Yes.
They may be Indian.
Yes.
But we don't have, in the black mom and pop stores, there are a few sprinkled in, but the store that we go to and spend most of our money, the people don't look like us. And they degrade us all the time. They treat us any kind of way. And, you know, even from a financial aspect, when we go in there, you can buy a can of beer cheaper than you can buy a bottle of water. What are you doing? There's no fruit or vegetables in those type of stores. We can buy cigarettes, we can buy liquor, we can buy those things.
To keep you dumbed down.
Keep you done that. And so, if we had an issue with your store, when I came into your store and if I bought chicken and french fries from your store and it was cold or wasn't cooked right or I got sick, I could come and loot your store. Do you know how many times that happens? But we don't loot it. If that was the case, we would be looting all the time is the point I'm making.
Okay, I see.
We would have a reason to loot all the time. We would have a reason to fight the police all the time because it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's just when the system says we need something to happen. 3 people got killed at the same time. 2 other people got killed right within the same month that George Floyd got killed. Breonna Taylor, who was shot in her house.
Yeah.
She wasn't doing anything. She was asleep, actually.
Yeah.
And then the guy Arbery in Georgia who was jogging, and he got shot by some vigilante guys who were, I guess, police at one point in time, or what have you, and they put out the video months later. And we kind of rallied around that. We kind of rallied around Breonna Taylor and the George Floyd things happened. So what happened? What made him and not to say that that's wrong, but what made him the black person that everything erupted? You know, that his mural is all over the world. Rest his soul. Like, that's a reason. Don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about the system.
Yeah.
And so now, we got this protest set up. And all across the world, nobody's protesting for Breonna Taylor or Ahmaud Arbery, but it's George Floyd. I mean, in Africa, in China, I mean, everywhere, they're protesting, right? If we go downtown to those particular areas where the protests are set up, there's bricks there, pallets of bricks have already been delivered to that area in a lot of cases. The people who even go in that area don't even recognize the people who are there protesting. The people who live in that area don't recognize some of the people that are around them that are protesting. Because the system sends in people, they're called provocateurs. And they are the ones who go in for the day, for the night. They're bussed in. They could be part of some forces around, local forces around, but they're bussed into these communities. It's pretty known now because I think it's been caught on. There was some Instagram footage in DC where some guys were questioning people. Like, who are you? Black guys that live in this community, and they were out peacefully protesting, and they saw white people walking by and they had Black Lives Matter signs, and they said, who are y'all? We don't know who y'all are. Don't come in here with that. Because one, they're trying to throw stuff. They're the ones that are causing the problems.
Provoking.
Exactly. That's why they're called provocateurs. And then don't get me wrong, you do have some people in those same communities that will try to take advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's just
sure.
gonna happen.
Sure.
But at the same time, the day before that protest was scheduled, you see nothing on the news. A week before that protest was scheduled, you see nothing on the news as far as people looting and rioting. It's only those 2 days that the protest happened. And then when you show up down there, the police are already there and they're armed and riot gear. They're already there.
Right.
Who tells them to go there?
Right.
Why are they there if it's supposed to be a peaceful protest? Why are they holding a line? What are you holding a line from? Why is it that you stand in the middle of the street and we can't go a block up? It's confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
And you're confronting the people who are sent there.
Mm-hmm.
And then all this rioting happens, stuff gets lit on fire. The next day, the news says, this place got tore up based on the protest that happened the night before. 2 days later, or a day later, now we put a curfew in place. So first you tell us how to feel, because you set up this protest in this place for a situation. You tell us how long to feel that way, because when you get sick of us feeling that way, even long after the provocateurs are gone and we're still going down there, you say, you know what? Now you got a curfew. So now you got to be home at 8 o'clock. And not only are we not going to make that curfew just for that area, we're going to make it for the whole county or the whole state. And now we got to go home. So now you silence us that way. Because nobody really wants to get arrested.
Right. So here's where I want to dive in for the audience, because you're going to have your people out there that you've already lost their emotional pull to you and your feeling of it from a black man, because they're honing in on the looting. They're honing in on the media and the exploitation of what's going on, right? So what do you say to that audience that goes, well, what gives someone a right? Why does the contrast, what makes it okay to go and tear down a Target? What is that part of it? What would the community is that? Do you see that in it? Is that another avenue of protesting for you? Here, because when I will stand and on my soapbox about seeing it through the lens of one of my black girlfriends, or in your case, just the same exact way, that is what someone will quickly say, come back at. So, is there, if you could do it, if you could see it being done, regardless of what they're showing us on the TV, and what some people, like you say, they're taking full advantage of the situation. And I always say, you can't control everyone, right? And when mass pandemonium goes, there are those just seeking attention that are out there for it. But it has nothing to do with the core of what we're talking about here, and an extension of. Right. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So, like, Terry, I don't hear you saying I condone ripping up a Target for the sake of it off the main street of the beaten path of the protest whatsoever. I want to clarify that, because the ones that are closed-minded, as you and I discussed before this started, just closed off. That's all. The hell with what you're saying to me about centuries and centuries of systematic things being done. They're going to go right to that one little thing. Oh, it gives them a right to do this, and it gives them. But cross over that for the audience for me.
And so, who are they talking to? Because Black Lives Matter wasn't started by black people. That's not our organization. The NAACP was not started by black people.
Okay, let's get, here we go.
Historically black colleges wasn't started by black people. White people didn't want us to be where they were. So they figured, okay, we have to let them go to school. Two schools that just, I mean, I can do this all day, but I mean, if you look at Spelman College, which was a women's school in Atlanta, Georgia, that's named after that's Spelman Rockefeller. That's Rockefeller's mother. That's who that school is named after. Rockefeller is one of the people above the president in this country, that name.
Yeah. Okay.
Howard University, prominent black school in Washington, D.C. General Howard, who was known for killing babies and slaves. So when we talk about these statues being torn down,
Yeah, let's go there.
you know, who's even tearing those down? The point that I'm making is we can do this all day long
Sure.
as black people.
Sure.
We have the right, and I'm saying right not in the sense of context of being right,
Right.
but if you want to say that injustice because of the length of time that we've been degraded,
Yep, okay.
and if we wanted to lash out, we could lash out for the next 400 years because that's how long we've been taken advantage of. And if that lash out looked like burning a target, which we wouldn't do,
Right.
because we could do it any other day.
Yep.
Or any other thing. Now, when you have those people that come into those communities, those are the ones that sit up and do it. Now, the Target or any of those major stores are pretty much insured. Every product on that shelf is insured. So, yeah, the brick and mortar of the building is lost, but the business isn't lost. Then what that does is it takes jobs away from the people in the community. And if I live in that community, you think I'm gonna burn down where I work as bad as I hate going to work, but that's what pays my bills? You think I'm gonna burn down Mrs. Lucy's snowball stand? Black lady who's probably been there for 30 years, or a traditional family black-owned corner. You think I'm gonna burn that down? No, somebody who has to come into that neighborhood that has no attachment to those things would burn that down.
So Donald, for you, so I'm about solutions. What would it be? What would it look like?
My ask, I'm glad you asked that question, and it's gonna shock a lot of people.
Let's hear it.
If I had one ask,
Mm-hmm.
we have had, I guess during the end of slavery time, black people were supposed to get 40 acres and a mule. That was what the understanding was supposed to be. Then it became reparations, which was a word that was thrown in later on. And that's what the reparations were supposed to be. Well, now we may or may not need the mule, but give us the land. And it was NPR a couple of weeks ago. There's a guy who I think is a professor at UNC or Duke, and he writes a book on reparations and what he feels about slavery. And I had thought before that, I said, just in writing in my mind, I said, give us 100 million acres.
Mm.
When he was talking, he said that it would have been roughly 40 million acres that they would have had to give at that time. If everybody got 40 acres, so that means it was 1 million people affected by, black people affected by slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time it was 40 million acres, based on his research and book and what have you. I wish I could think of his name. But I said give us 100 million acres. Give us 100 million acres somewhere, like almost how it was in, which we don't hear about, Little Oklahoma.
Okay.
Where that was the first terrorist attack that happened on U.S. soil. Little Oklahoma was a place where it was all black. It was black bankers, black doctors, black lawyers, everything was black. Everybody bought from each other, and they would not trade or do business with white people. And they went in a few different times and said, hey, you want to do business with us? No, we're not going to do business with us. And then they kind of gave you that, are you sure you don't want to do business with us? No, we don't want to do business with us. We don't need you. We built this whole country without you. We don't need you to validate us to make it feel like we're something. So they flew a plane over and they bombed it.
Mm.
Little Oklahoma. That's history. Then you have Harlem, which kind of was the same thing. Then they said, well, you know, we got to stop this segregation and we really need to integrate, because if we integrate, we can control it better. We leave them alone, they're going to be fine. We don't want them to be fine in this country. That's not part of the system. So when I say give us 100 million acres, I don't care where you give it to us. Any black person that wants to go there, go there. Because we have enough. We have, like we talked about, we have black military heads, we have black doctors, we have lawyers, we have contractors. I mean, we have everything black.
And would you be your own country? Would it be your own country?
I wouldn't give shit. You don't even have to give it a title.
Okay, all right.
That's just what.
Your own land.
We call reservations for Indians, and we don't give them no credit.
Yeah, okay.
We push them to the corner of the earth. You hardly even hear about them, except for when they got ready to run the pipeline through there, and those people protested so bad, and then a lot of them ended up being killed because they have no protection, and a lot of what they get are quote unquote reparations or support from the government. We don't even want that. Just give us the land. Send us over there, wherever that over there is, here. Because there's, you know, why don't you send them back to Africa? Well, we was fine in Africa until you bought us here. So if you want us here, and you want to show us justice, or you want to let us police ourselves, because right now we don't have communities. Communities is where you control your schools, you control your cops, you control your money. Our money doesn't stay in our community. Black people spend trillions of dollars a year, but it doesn't stay in our community, because when I go to Target, my money doesn't go back to my house. When I go to the dollar store, my money doesn't go back to the black community. So our money doesn't even circulate in our community. So if you give us that 100 million acres and leave us alone, leave us to our own devices, we can build our own military, we can build our own schools, we can have our own agriculture, we can do every single thing that we need to do on our own. We were self-sufficient, regardless of what people think before we got here. We built pyramids. I mean, we did things that we can do. So if I had one ask, that would be my ask. Give us 100 million acres. All the black people that want to go can go. The ones that don't can stay. And every now and again, you're going to have to deal with police brutality. Every now and again, you're going to feel oppressed. We're going to include you, which is what this system is here for. It's inclusion. We'll include you. But you're never going to be able to fulfill that greatness, because you're just going to be included in a system.
Okay.
Anybody who goes to work at like McDonald's, that they have a hell of a system. They can teach me how to turn French fries in 2 days. It don't matter the person. It don't matter what I have in here. You train me how to turn those French fries, I can turn them. That's the system. But over here, where we are, we can create our own system for our own people and let that be that. So if I had my ass, that would be my ass.
Would it be exclusive?
Absolutely.
So completely exclusive, only blacks?
Only black people. We live in a country that's majority of white people. In addition, the United States is majority white. And we're here because we were brought here. But other than that, other people come here to do business. You know, Asians come here to do business. Because it's the greatest country in the world as far as opportunity and that.
Okay.
And that's not. But yeah, we're all of those things just fine. You know, and that's where I feel like there's a continent called Africa where we come from. And that's all that's there. So when you go to New York, you can go to Little Chinatown. You can go to Little Italy. You got it?
I do. I get it.
There's no Little Africa.
I get it.
Let that be Little Africa.
Why? And from your perspective and your lens, why is that? Because I see it all the time. I'm like, why is it black and white? Why do we not have the same discord with Asians? Why do we not have the same? Why is that not prominent when it comes to segregation? Why are we not? Why is it just a black and white thing? Why?
Because that's what the system decides. And for as much as they talk about Africa and the pictures that they show of it being a poor country, they got plants. They have been there since we left, since they got us out of there, since they came in and took over. They've been looting our diamonds that you get to go and buy when you go to the store, Sierra Leone. They've been taking our coltan, which is in every single cell phone that's in the Congo. Coltan. If you don't have coltan, you can't even run a cell phone. that's a natural resource. Kind of, I feel like the movie Black Panther was a play on that. That's just my basic opinion because it was vibranium,
Oh yeah.
and it was all the technology that you. Same thing, but they're looting our country, and so it was almost like they had to get us out so they could go in unabated.
Yep.
And now the way that I see it is just give us our place and leave us alone. Like we're fine. We don't, and that's the thing that I feel like I feel like it steals our thunder when we're out. Oh, we just want justice. We just want peace. We just want to feel equal.
For you, it's deeper.
Why are we asking for that? Like, and this is the thing that separates the system from you and I. It's the human spirit.
That's right.
The human spirit wins all the time.
Yeah. Light
So-
over dark, I tell
All the
clients.
time. So
All
that,
the time.
So that's why when you look at even the millennials and even the young people and all of this stuff that's going on,
The Generation Z and all that.
that's right. They're fed up with it because they don't see it. They didn't grow up back during that time, so they don't see it. But the human spirit,
It's in them.
love
It's in them.
conquers.
It's
Right.
in them. So I didn't share this with you, and this might set you back a bit. But yesterday I had the pleasure of sitting with a young girl, 21 years old, Vanderbilt student, who is a part of the NC Born organization. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
So that is one of your main right now protest orgs downtown
Okay.
in the Black community. She's a white girl, but I am hoping right now to get a phone call from one of their, I understand the age range is from mid-20s down to probably, she said, sophomore in high school. And I'm hoping really to hear more from the generations that you're talking about, because her and I I told her, I said, you know, when I was a young child, she's such an old soul.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm told you're like damn Benjamin Button. I mean, you like going backwards. You're not going. I have a hard time relating with my generation because of a lack of a soul level lens.
Soul level. I like that.
And that's why I propose some of these questions to you. What do you say? Because when I have these conversations with I'm 47, when I have them, it's quick to fire up about everything but what the issue is for my brothers and my sisters. Deep in here, not the external discomfort of what's going on in the noise of it. It's the soul level of what I hear you pleading for. It's a deep injustice on the soul, not the external noise that the media talks about. Nobody, it's amazing to me the lack of, I'm not a religious person, grew up Christian, Baptist, twice on Sunday, Wednesday dinner. So I know what that institution looks like. And we'll talk about that. People will get on that carpet. But we don't talk about just souls. And souls are not black, white, Asian, Latino, short, fat, challenged mentally. They're none of that. They are we are mirrors to that. And so what I want desperately is for people, I've got an exercise that I do with clients in the coaching industry that usually resonates and hits really quick. So I'll ask all of you maybe to hone in on this, and I call it the 12 feet above. In your daily doings, if you could allow your soul first tap into it, allow it to elevate 12 feet above you, and look from that soul plane down on what you're doing, who you're doing it with. And I'm not suggesting, I think there's a disservice to the whole mindfulness, and I think there is a large sector of people that are left out of this mindfulness talk
Absolutely.
because they are not per se walking the walk. So if you're not a yogist, if you're not a yogi, if you're not a vegan, if you're not this, then you don't fit into that puzzle. And I think there's a bigger pool of those people that are on the external that really need to feel a part of the mindfulness movement that don't even allow a glimpse into that because they're not zen enough. They're not zen enough.
They don't check all the boxes.
They don't check all the boxes, so you're discorded. So again, there's segregation even in that, which again all comes down to premise of the soul coming from a soul level, which breaks even down further if you want to get real generic, is just love.
That's it.
That's all it is.
Love conquers all.
That's all it is, brother. I mean, seriously. And when you even channel a little bit of energy and just riding that wave, the abundance that continues to come. So that's why I asked you if you were given and granted that you guys had your land. Once the dust settled there, could I come visit?
You can visit.
Okay, tell me about that.
And because I think we have to be a lot smarter than we were before.
Okay.
In Africa, when Alexander came to visit, Caesar came to visit.
Okay.
We're a soulful people. We want to give, we want to teach, we want to love, we want to embrace. And so, like I know, if Heather was coming to Little Africa, hell yeah.
We're gonna have a good time.
Absolutely. But we got to be mindful of
What I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong.
allowing visitors.
You
in
want it
that
as pure
space.
for you there as we see it as pure for us here.
Absolutely.
I follow.
Because when you talk about, and it's a two-sided sword. We throw the word white privilege around.
Okay.
If me as a black man had this place that I'm speaking about, and I founded this place or took this place, however you want to say it, but I'm in control of this place.
Sure.
If I'm getting control of this place and I have a 10-year-old son, which I have, best believe I'm going to do everything to make sure that my 10-year-old son will be all right. If everybody else looked like my 10-year-old son, it's going to be much easier for me to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
We got to instill those values, those morals. You guys got to get up and get it every day. There's no playtime here.
There's no fear.
Yeah. But we're going to have fun. We're going to be great. Same thing with that white man.
Sure.
When he said, this is my place, I'm going to make sure my kids are raised here. They go to the best schools, even if I'm going to create them, which we'll create our own. I'm going to make sure that my women are fine, whatever the case may be. So when people say white privilege, because I've had conversations with people that don't understand, white people who don't understand white privilege, and I said you wouldn't, because you're just part of what's
And that's
here.
right.
It's not
Because
necessarily.
that's all you've ever known.
And it's not necessarily like we throw it around like it's a bad thing. And then what makes it bad is when you degrade other people for your greatness and take that and make it your greatness. That's the problem. If when Eli Whitney said, "Oh, I created the cotton gin," but it was nothing but slaves doing that to make their work a little easier, but he was the one that got the patent, and now he's great because of that. But you stepped on other people to be great. That's the problem with privilege. That's where privilege goes over the line.
Yeah.
But the basic privilege, you gonna look out for your people. I'm gonna look out for my people. They do it. I live in Morrisville.
Okay.
There's a large Indian population. They look out for each other. They barely speak to other people, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But they look out for each other. You know, you hear certain Indian names that you know that they own stores. You know that they own hotels. The Asians do it. You're not gonna go on an Asian. Me as a black man, an Asian not gonna sell me a beauty supply store from one of his. He's not gonna sell me a nail shop. I mean, I'm gonna have to go and get it.
Yeah.
They keep that in house. It's There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And that's the problem. I feel like we always feel like, in America, so to speak, just the general narrative is, if everybody's not included, if you don't have all these different people included in this, then it's not real. But like you said, it only happens when it's a black and white thing.
It is.
Nobody bothers them.
No.
Those Asians, those people.
No.
Nobody protests and says, why aren't you letting us own this? Or why can't we buy a gas station or what, from you? Or whatever the case may be. It's not that narrative. And so that's where the system is. And so so we're fighting, I feel like, the wrong enemy. Because you as a white person in this system couldn't help me even if you wanted to. So why am I mad at you?
Right.
I'm mad at the wrong person.
Okay. Here we go. This is where I want to go, folks. Keep going here. Because this is where I think it begins to break down. Because I think when we talk about racial contrast, what you just embark on right here is for Caucasians to hear you say, and for blacks to hear you say, it's not really between you and I. But because it's on ground level, that's where the heat comes and starts. Okay, get into that.
And you match the color of the same people that are ahead of the system.
Yes.
So now I make you part of the system.
Yeah.
And you're not part of the system.
Yes.
We're in the system.
Yes.
But you're not part of the system.
Amen. This is what I meant in the very beginning when I said if there was one thing I could do whenever I'm against and walk up against a sister and I can feel her due to the terrain, I can feel the body language of she thinks she knows what I'm thinking. That's where it's got to change. And the only way we do that is by this right here, breaking it down, breaking it down, breaking it down, breaking it down.
Yes. And you want to be more interested instead of interesting.
Yes.
And one of the things that I feel like, so one of the greatest white people in black history is John Brown. John Brown had 2 sons. He was an abolitionist. He was a white man. And he didn't want black people with him when he went around because he killed slave owners. He killed police. He killed anybody who he seen to be corrupt. They actually planned an attack, and it didn't go as well as he had planned in Harper's Ferry, and that's where he ended up subsequently hung. He put his life on the line for black people. So that's why I say it's the system.
Yep.
He wanted to help.
And then how it's bred within the home, your environment, and it perpetuates. And that's why we are here today.
That's right.
Still, hundreds of years later, fighting for soul rights.
That's right.
Period.
And when I talk about John Brown, he was Harriet Tubman, knew him. Frederick Douglass knew him. They knew each other. So that's why.
And the operative word there is knew each other.
That's right.
Right.
And he gave his life for black people. Right?
Yeah.
And guess what? We still suffering the same injustice. They hung him just like they would hang us back during that time.
Yeah.
So that's when I say that white people couldn't help us if they wanted to because of the system. And so once we understand that, as long as we can mesh problem,
Okay.
as long as we can mesh day to day in our space, we win. Because all you can control is your family and your community and your environment.
Yes.
And that's where we have to keep it. Not in the sense of you're against me, I'm against you. You want bad for me, I want bad for you.
Yes.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
Tell me what you're going through. And when you go to do your work that you so desperately feel called to do,
Yes.
not that you want to do.
Yes.
You're Joanna Brand.
Yeah.
If you feel called to do that, then you go in and you say, hey, tell me what's up. You go in as I learned in servant leadership, a whole course that I took for a year, you learn to go in and saying, hey, what can I do? You announce yourself as that. Because when you come in the look automatically is, oh, this white woman just think I'm nothing and I just need help.
Yeah, no.
And that's the look that
Yeah,
you
they,
get.
oh, it
and,
is.
and,
It
and
is.
it's part of the system.
It is.
You know,
It is.
you represent the white man who's taking advantage
That's
of us.
right.
And so when you say, you know what, hey sis, I'm here. You know, what is it that I can do? I want to have a conversation with you. Just start out there. Tell me about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you come from a place of just genuine love like you do.
9 out of 10 times I can break that energy down within 20 seconds. That I know comes from the authentic energy that comes right off my body.
Mm-hmm.
Then you hear the story. I mean, in the 80s, now you're talking 20-some years ago, so you can only fathom. In the South, I dated a black man for 4 years. I've never adhered. And I'm talking about my mother's father, P. Paul. You know, my black friends would come to the house, and that ingrained system in him, he would literally, and just from a system, he would say, oh, you must be one of the good ones. Just as serious as, oh yeah, just as serious as, and I would jump at him. People. So from the 80s, early mid 80s, this was part of me. And I think, you know, 20 years, I'm 47 years old, just watching it and seeing it. I mean, in the pushback that I got back then from my own community, as you can imagine. I've always stood on this box. Always stood on this box. My kids, my oldest is pushing 14. I can remember her being in the 3rd grade and me getting a phone call from the teacher saying, just so you know, your daughter stood up today for a little black girl at the table. And I said, are you kidding? She said, no. They're all sitting there coloring in their little square. And the little white girl said something about black people, not good. Her daddy told her. She said, and your daughter flew up out of the chair. The chair went backward. She stood straight up and said, well, you tell your daddy he's mistaken. My family has several black friends, and there's nothing bad about them.
Wow.
So it is bred in our homes. And the only way you're going to get away from that system, and when you talk about this Z generation, that is the conversation I got from a Caucasian girl yesterday, standing up. She's 21 years old. And I said to her, in the energy work that I do, I believe that these younger generations are coming in. They are coming into this 3rd world dimension to completely flip the switch. They really are.
They're called indigo children.
Yes, they are indigo children.
That's an actual term.
It's a very big term.
You can look it up.
Yep, your children have sleep issues. They normally have large eyes. I could go on and on.
Yes.
I do believe that both my children are indigo children. I have no doubt about that. And anyone in my family will attest to the sleep disorders and issues that I had with them as infants, because they are magnetic.
Yes.
And so there is a whole posse of them
Yes.
right in the trenches as we speak. And so when you say they are demanding change, is it because their vibration, that's the only way they run.
That's exactly right.
That's the way they run. And so the discord, and I have a lot of clients that are older teens, young old adolescents, young adults. And one of the first premises off the bat with their parents is, I'm their advocate, not yours. Because the issue is you're not meeting them where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
You're expecting them to meet you at a place where you don't even trust.
Right.
And so I believe wholeheartedly our children come in to teach us.
Absolutely. Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
It's two things on that point. I had a conversation with an older gentleman and his wife. They were 78 years old. He owns an HVAC company, pretty prominent guy around, and good friends of mine. We were sitting down having a conversation. And I've heard this several times, but a lot of the stigma
Mm.
or even perception, for a better word.
Perception, because that's what screws everybody up.
So the wife was telling me, she said, I grew up in, I want to say Pitt County, North Carolina.
Mhm.
Didn't grow up around many black people. I saw, but we didn't really grow up around. Of course, TV and radio, radio was a thing. You didn't get all the propaganda you get now. And TV actually went off back in the day. And she said, so I never really had a lot of experience with that.
Mhm.
Well, as time goes along, if you can live in a community where everybody looks like you,
Sure.
when you go to the stores, the people are white,
Mhm.
your neighbors are white, when you go to school, the teachers are white. And the only sight you get to see of me is on the news
Yep.
when I robbed a store
Yeah.
or I've done something wrong.
Mhm.
That's what your perception
Mhm.
of black people will be.
Sure.
So even like you said, in just having a conversation,
Mhm.
you get to see that, oh, that's not like what I just saw on CNN
That's
or
right.
Fox News or whatever channel you watch. And so that was one thing that I felt to be big, is just the fact that we don't at times cross paths. Now,
Breaking down barriers.
for us, when we go to the store, we go to Food Line, we go to any store in our neighborhood, nobody looks like us. We see white people. When we go to school, our teachers are white. Our cops are white. So we have been introduced to white people from childhood, but you can live in a whole community all your life
Mhm.
up until a certain point if you never leave,
Mhm.
and only thing you get to see of black people is on TV.
Mhm.
That's part of the system. Now, just recently, this past weekend, I was in Maryland, and I got stopped by a cop.
Mhm.
My son was sitting in the back seat, over in the corner, and pulled over. Black cop, it was a black cop. He got out of the car. He said, he introduced himself. He had a heavy accent, Caribbean accent, African accent. And so he told me his name, stated his name, and said you were doing 63 and 55. The only reason you were going that fast. I said, well, isn't that 8 over? Technically, you go to court, they mark it
Yeah,
down.
they
They don't- right.
Yeah, you'll pay more in court.
Right,
Yeah, they're
right.
not even gonna take it.
Right. And I said, but I was just doing 8 over. He said, yeah. He said, well, what are we doing? I said, well, I'm going back to get my stuff because I'm getting ready to head back from North Carolina. This was on Sunday. And he said, because something came over his radio, and he said, I just got another call. He said, but have a blessed day, be safe. And so I gave him a pound, and I said, you be safe too, wherever you're going. As soon as he left and walked away, I rolled my window up. My son was on, I thought he was just like looking at something on his phone.
He was recording it.
No. He looked up and he said, this is all he said. Gave me chills. There should be more black cops. And he put his head down and he kept on right what he was doing. That's all he said. And I didn't ask him anything, but that point was so loud.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Because that's the exchange. Not that you should get off. If you're doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong. But
Sure.
that's the exchange that
It
is
should be.
respectful.
Yeah, right. Not insinuating.
Right.
Right. I dated a black man who was had a SWAT team in Virginia Beach. That's a whole nother story and a whole nother ball of wax. But even within that arena, back in the 90s, that it was, even he then was like a man on an island by himself in the system. So if you could have one wish granted, it would be to give you that land and that mule, like they said,
Everybody goes along.
and leave you alone. And I respect that. Now that you broke that down for me, in the sense of when I said, could I come in? And you said, you visit, because that's literally how it is here. And why should it be any different? It's no different for the Indian culture. We don't look at them as a threat, even though they want their marts, and they're not going to invite in someone else in.